I don't like these movies.
Get real.
And I saw that movie 20 goddamn times!
Just consume violence.
I watch violent movies. Yeah, violent movies are the best movies.
Having so much fun and getting...
No, this movie's too complicated.
So, once again, no smoking in this theater.
I must go punch that baby.
Hello, and welcome back to another week of Idle Film Club.
Welcome back, everyone.
I'm Gio,
I'm Callum.
and this week we are here to talk about Poor Things.
A very divisive film, I guess. In the room right now, it's quite divisive. But won a few Oscars last weekend, and people talked about it a lot when it came out at the start of the year, and we finally watched it, and we're going to discuss it this week.
So, if you were a fan of last week, George's autism, strap in, because this week we've got Callum's autism.
Weaponized, baby.
So, before we go into our thoughts and opinions, I'm just going to do my little overview. So, Poor Things came out in 2023, directed by Yorgos Lanthimos, which I believe is how you say it.
Yep.
Produced by Searchlight and has a solid 18 rating.
Last week's was also 18, but if you compare the two, you can see this one is very much an 18.
Finally, someone put an appropriate amount of sex in a movie.
Not one to watch with the kids.
Certainly isn't. So this movie comes out at 2 hours and 21 minutes and had a production budget of 35 million, which I believe is his largest budget to date. So exciting times ahead for Yorgos. This sits at an 8.1 at IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes has 92% and an 88 Metascore.
Successful, people like it.
Yeah, so this is very well regarded. And we also have another continuation of our Oscar segment. So this one, makeup and hairstyling, actress in a leading role for Emma Stone, which I think, good for you, girl. You worked real hard on this movie. Production design and costume design. So again, we have a lot of holdovers from last week.
I'm glad they won it because I have a lot to say about those three things specifically, and I think they're worthy winners. I think I would have liked to see Lily Gladstone win the Oscar for Killers of the Flower Moon, but it's hard to argue against Emma Stone winning.
Am I right in saying that she was a producer on this movie?
Yeah, she was one of 4 producers on the movie. It was basically a collaboration between her and Yorgos that they came up with on The Favourite, while they were working together on that. Yeah, looking behind the scenes, I think Emma Stone had a lot of input into production, which is cool.
I think you can really tell, which we'll get into the depictions of sex later, but I think you can very much tell that she had a lot to do with this movie, and good for her.
Just off the bat, we'll say I really enjoyed this movie. I loved it. We're going to try and get Georgia on our side here.
Yeah.
The next hour will be me trying to convince Georgia why this is actually a good movie, but it isn't a bit of Georgia, this one.
No, and I think it's not so much convincing me because, unfortunately, I can't be convinced.
We'll try our best.
I can appreciate, but I'm stubborn as shit.
You were in my son.
What?
From what I understand, I did very basic research on this. Callum went a bit further into sort of the filmmaking side of things. We had a production budget of 35 million and it made a worldwide box office return of 105 million. So considering it was an 18 movie, it did pretty well. Definitely wouldn't be considered a flop. And this was a victim, how we have victims of the pandemic. We also are now seeing victims of the SAG-AFTRA strike. So this was postponed. It was supposed to be released in September. It was then postponed to December. Am I right in saying that this is based on a book?
Yes, it's a 1992 novel by a Scottish author called Alistair Gray, who Yorgos met with, because Yorgos was very interested in adapting this, I think, since 2009. He's been talking about doing it.
Yeah, that's what I saw, which is a crazy amount of time.
Yeah, and he met the author in 2010. The author showed Yorgos around Glasgow and was very up for a screen adaptation by Lanthimos. Alistair Gray, the author, apparently was a big fan of Dogtooth, one of Yorgos' early movies. He had the DVD apparently, and I think put his whole trust in Yorgos. And unfortunately, he died a couple of years ago now before it came out, which is a shame. But I think by the sounds of it, he was a big Yorgos fan, so I think he would have liked it.
I mean, going into this review, full disclosure, I've seen Killing of a Sacred Deer. You're a big fan of Yorgos' work, but for me, it's It's a bit weird. And again, this is where my issues with the film come in. I haven't seen The Favourite, I haven't seen The Lobster, but it's the kookiness is not for me.
Yeah, Georgia's not a fan of the artsy,
Whimsy.
quirky, whimsical side of films, which I get. I guess this falls somewhere in between a Tim Burton movie and a Lynch movie.
Yeah.
Neither of those you're particular fans of.
No.
But I do. I think I love a bit of whimsy, and I love the sense of humour in his movies. This one was a bit different, I think. See, I love The Favourite just because of how dry that movie is, and everyone exists on a different plane.
Yeah.
We went for something dramatic. Do you like it?
You look like a badger.
This was a bit more absurdist and overtly comical.
I think with a lot of his movies, you have to 100% buy into this universe. And that is something that often I find that I struggle with a bit. If it's too far detached from a sense of grounded reality, I think that's where I struggle.
This is a bit of a departure away from movies like Sacred Deer or The Lobster because it is so far-fetched in its production design. But even if you look at Dogtooth, I guess, which I've seen and loved, there are stories told in real life that are very grounded in reality, but the characters are absurd. Whereas this, everything is absurd.
It functions as a fairy tale, and I think you can see the holdover from this being a novel. I think it's the kind of thing that, again, I look at it and I say, okay, I totally get how that has been successfully translated into a movie, but for me it didn't quite hit. I knew going into this movie that it was going to be a risk. Even when I watched Killing of a Sacred Deer, you were like, oh my god, I'm so surprised that you enjoyed that sort of thing, because it's not the kind of thing that I usually like.
Within about 2 minutes of this, I realised this was going to be a long evening for Georgia.
She's an experiment. She is progressing at an accelerated pace.
Shall we crack on with the plot?
Go for it.
Then we can discuss our thoughts after we've had a little recap. If you're listening to this and haven't seen Poor Thing,
Go into it spoiler free.
do go and watch it now, because I'm about to spoil the crux of the movie. It's on Disney Plus. We said Amazon Prime last week. We got that wrong. Apologies. Fuck Amazon. Cancel your Prime subscription.
Do you still have your Prime subscription?
Doesn't matter. Anyway, watch it on Disney Plus. Come back and listen to this. I implore you to watch it.
This is Bella.
Hello, Bella.
Oh,
Bud.
blood.
Bud.
Blood.
The film opens on a pregnant woman, played by Emma Stone, and she is wearing a bright blue dress, and she leaps from a bridge into the Thames. There's a shot there, she's falling into the Thames to her presumed death, which is a direct reference to last week's movie, Bram Stoker's Dracula. It directly parallels Elizabeth's death. You'll see a lot of references in the production, a lot of references to that movie, because it was their main inspiration, apparently. So that's our first one within a minute. Then we cut to black and white footage of the same woman at a piano, who's Bella Baxter. She is sort of smashing away at a piano, not playing anything, almost as if a child, when a child sees a piano.
Is she meant to be a child?
Well, she speaks in very short sentences. I think she starts off just speaking in words. She walks very infantile. She's like a newborn deer trying to get her footing. So we learn that Bella died in the beginning, jumping from the bridge, and an eccentric surgeon called Godwin Baxter, played by Willem Dafoe, he took the brain of the fetus and transplanted it into her body, which had died in the suicide. So she has the body of an adult, but the brain of a child, which is very interesting themes. So she lives in this house with Godwin, who she refers to as God. Ooh.
Did you get it?
Did you guys? There's some very subtle themes going on here. Godwin is a surgeon, but he's also a teacher at a medical school, and that's where he enlists the help of one of his students, Max McCandles, who's played by Rami Youssef, who's great.
Beautiful man.
He's a beautiful man. So he enlists Max, and his job at the house is to collect data on Bella's progress. At this point, he doesn't know what's going on with Bella. Godwin tells Bella that she's an orphan and that her parents were explorers in Peru.
Researching spiders right before they die.
I think they might be, you know?
That was a callback to Ep 1, by the way.
For all you idol film heads. For all the OG clubbers.
Idle heads.
Who are you? What is going on?
Bella starts to learn and progress at an exponential rate. She discovers her sexuality and is very into masturbation. She's confused as to why it's a social faux pas, which I think is very interesting, and that sort of kicks off the themes of Protestant views on sex.
She tries to fondle the housekeeper.
Yeah, and I think she doesn't understand why you wouldn't just do this all day because it feels so good.
Yeah. She's not wrong.
She's not wrong, but doesn't understand that it's a social faux pas and that it's wrong, obviously, to just go ahead and touch someone's genitals in a very childish way. She doesn't understand social norms. However, Max starts to fall in love with her. Bella goes to show him what she's learned about sex. It's obviously set in Victorian England, so Max is into it, but wants to get married before they have sex. It's very interesting dynamic between Max and Bella, because at the start it is sort of predatory. I think a lot of people took issue with the portrayal I saw on Twitter, but those people got called out for having no grasp of film literacy at all.
Do you mean the juxtaposition between her being portrayed as so infantile and also the fact that she's not sexualized, but she's very sexual and everyone around her sort of knows that she's not an adult?
Yeah, people took issue, I think, with Max being attracted to Bella.
I don't agree with that.
Well, no, that's the entire crux of the movie, isn't it?
Yeah, and also
How
she...
men prey on
Yeah.
girls.
Yeah, didn't you not get that?
Because Max, I don't think, is a bad person. However, his views on sex and his sort of attraction to Bella is questionable in a way that, you know, I'm sure people used to marry 13-year-olds, and it's very odd, and we've sort of grown to realise that that is predatory behaviour.
I didn't really see that angle of it. Because I think he's very respectful of her. But she is very, very endearing. And they spend a lot of time together. And you'll see quickly that everyone who meets Bella basically falls in love with her because she's so unique and she's so special. And she has such a funny... She's funny.
She's
and
a manic pixie dream girl.
Yeah, but he doesn't act on that.
No, but I think he wants to marry her. So God drafts up a contract for Bella and Max's marriage, which would involve them living at Godwin's house indefinitely, Bella not leaving, basically being a prisoner to God. And Max is willing to do that. So I think that is questionable. And he gets very funny about Bella always wanting to go outside, because Bella soon, when she matures, realises there's an entire world out there that she wants to see. And this is facilitated then by a character called Duncan Wedderburn, who we love.
We love him. He was a delight in this movie.
He's without a doubt the best part of the movie for me.
100%.
He's so funny. It's such a good performance.
I did not realise Mark Ruffalo was that funny.
You're always reading now, Bella. You're losing some of your adorable way of speaking.
So he plays Duncan Wedderburn, as I said, who is a lawyer that Godwin hires to help for the contract, or, you know, just do lawyer things. I don't understand how contracts work.
He's a
I have a child.
solicitor.
He's a solicitor.
Just as Jonathan Harker.
Exactly. Ooh, lots of crossover themes here.
He's very different to Jonathan Harker, though.
He has a personality.
Not quite as handsome, though.
I know where the bastard sleeps.
So Duncan is so confused by this contract and is basically wants to see the woman that would require such a contract. So he pretends to go to the toilet and finds Bella and basically convinces her to run away with him. Godwin at first doesn't want this to happen, obviously, because he's wary that Bella is basically a child. But I like the way that he realises she has her own free will and he doesn't try and lock her up. I think he's worried at first, but then soon realises she's going to do what she wants to do and he has no right stopping her.
Yeah, and she is a human, for want of a better term. I mean, she is a Frankenstein's monster, but God cares about her and wants her to be happy and fulfilled. And I think he realises that the only way that's going to happen for her is by letting her fly the nest.
They begin their excursion in Lisbon, Bella and Duncan. They mostly stay inside and have sex a lot.
A lot.
Duncan seems to be a fantastic lover, and Bella is just more than happy to non-stop fuck.
Oh.
At one point, after he finishes after 4 times and wants to rest, she goes out and explores the city. They eat, what are those little custard tarts? My friend Ayrton is obsessed with them. Custard de nata?
Never heard of it.
You know, the little Portuguese custard tarts. You get them in Nando's at the end. But yeah, shout out and he introduced me to them and he loves them.
Incredible. Who made this? We need more.
Bella starts to get a bit fed up of Duncan pretty quickly because she wants to go out and explore, and I think she saw that in Duncan. He was sort of the antithesis of what Max was, which was adventure and discovery, but she soon realises he sort of just wanted to fuck, I think.
Yeah, and he also doesn't want to fuck as much as she does.
No, because I think it's physically
because
impossible.
it's physically the laws of man do not
she
exist.
Obviously doesn't understand sex yet, really.
No, she understands her own sexuality, and women can go and go and go and go and go, but men, for want of trying,
3 minutes, one and done, isn't it? many such cases.
But again, this sort of plays into what we find with all of Bella's relationships with men, is that she goes into it because it's something new and it's something different, and very, very quickly she cottons on to the fact that men are just shy.
Yeah. So he smuggles Bella away in a case, a trunk, I guess, onto a cruise ship.
It's giving Duke of Burgundy.
Yeah, it is. On the cruise ship, Bella meets two new people. Again, she just latches on to people very
loved them.
quickly. They were fantastic. An older lady and a younger man. The young man is into philosophy, so lends Bella some books on philosophy. She starts to sort of think on the next level
Social
of thought.
consciousness.
Social consciousness, which Duncan is just angry about because he wants Bella to stay, I guess, infantile and naive about the world.
Well, and also Duncan is incredibly privileged. And she starts to learn about class inequality and things like that, which he then doesn't like.
There's a fantastic scene where Duncan goes to throw the older woman overboard, and Bella is just standing there delighted just because she gets to witness something interesting.
Chaos.
She loves chaos.
Yeah.
So Duncan, after this attempted murder, goes to just gamble. While Duncan's gambling, they stop off in Alexandria, and the young man, I can't remember his name,
No,
I
I
wish I'd
don't.
written it down, who's into philosophy, takes Bella to Alexandria. Another layer of life gets introduced to her where she sees the slums and the poor souls there who are burying dead babies and are starving to death. Gains a bit of class consciousness and doesn't understand the injustices of life. While Duncan is passed out, she takes all his gambling winnings and gives them to crew members under the guise that the crew members are going to give them to the poor people. She wants to leave and go give money to those living in the slums and help them out. When Duncan wakes up, he's obviously furious. He's not a very charitable man. And also, that is his entire money. So they get kicked off the boat in Marseille. And that's where their cruise ends. And they wind up in Paris, Bella and Duncan. They have no money and nowhere to stay. And Bella, loving sex and needing money, heads to a brothel. And again, she doesn't understand about the social distaste that comes with prostitution. So she earns 40 francs, comes back to Duncan and he's like, look, I have money. All I had to do was have sex with a man for about 5 minutes. And obviously he is distraught, angry, obviously has that sense of ownership of Bella that comes with relationships, where he sees it as a betrayal, whereas Bella just sees it as practicality.
Yeah, she needed money and she got money.
Exactly.
And she got to have sex at the same time. But I also think it very much shows how when she is in control of the narrative in terms of sex, it feels very different than when you're giving up your agency, having sex with another man who's paying for it because he gets to decide. It's on his terms.
Wedderburn became much weepy and sweary when he discovered my whoring.
And obviously she has basically a fresh brain that is not tarnished by social normality. She doesn't understand the eons of history of Christianity and the shame towards sex. She doesn't have that hanging over her, which is, I think, such a cultural thing that you sort of learn, you know what I mean? Growing up, sex is something to be ashamed of.
This movie is incredibly sex positive, and that's something that's very fun to see. I think the Parisian section was by far my favourite part of the movie.
Yeah, so she begins working full-time in the brothel that's run by Madame Sweeney, who you said, Ryan, you're a Lynch character.
Very much so.
And I think you were probably thinking of the landlady from Mulholland Drive.
Yeah, that is exactly what I was thinking of.
Yes, who's
She's
a fantastic
very,
character.
very specific.
I'm Diane Selwyn.
Well, just call me Coco. Everybody does. Pleased to meet you.
Very like a hard-ass woman who don't
Kind of
take no
creepy.
shit.
She's sort of nice to Bella, but in a very pragmatic way, where she's under no assumptions that she doesn't own Bella.
Yeah, but there is that manipulation that comes with a employer-employee
Yeah, definitely.
situation. And when it comes to something as sensitive as sex, obviously gives another layer to that dynamic. When Duncan learns this, he has such a hissy fit that she just leaves, basically.
He's
fed up with
bare
him.
annoying.
He is annoying. She then gets together with a fellow sex worker, Toinette.
Loved her.
She starts teaching Bella about socialism and workers' rights and Marxism, which is very cool.
And eating pussy.
And eating pussy.
Uncle June, how was Boca?
Wonderful. I don't go down enough.
That's not what I heard.
However, back in London, Godwin is dying. He has a tumour. So he asks Max to locate Bella, which she does, and she returns to London after returning to the normality of where she grew up, I guess, she sort of resumes her relationship with Max and agrees to marry him. At the wedding, however, it's interrupted by Duncan and a man named Alfie Blessington, who claims to be the husband of Bella. He refers to her as Victoria, so that's obviously the woman from the start of the movie, before Bella's reanimation.
All of the names in this are so funny.
They are.
They're so odd and weird.
Yeah, so he is her ex-husband. She leaves with him again just because it's something to do.
It's a new experience.
It's a new
for
experience,
her.
so she goes along with him. However, she learns that he is a cunt.
Literally within 30 seconds of getting into the carriage, she realises, oh, this guy is a monster.
And can you imagine hearing about Marxism for the first time and then going to live with a man who treats his...
We'll call them servants in this case, because that is how they are treated in the movie.
He's just a despicable man. You can very quickly see why Victoria killed herself. Because imagine carrying this man's child.
The spawn of Satan.
He threatens her with FGM, which again is a bit dark for a movie like this. Sat a bit uneasy with me, but I guess narratively you needed to see what a despicable person he was. And I guess back in that time it was probably a lot more common than we'd like to think, because he thinks she's neurotic and thinks that circumcision will calm her down. While he tries to sedate her because she learns of this plan, she throws the drink that was meant for her, which had
chloroform and gin.
She throws that over him, and he ends up shooting himself in the foot. So she escapes Alfie's, goes back to Godwin's to join him and Max. Godwin dies
Pretty immediately,
pretty soon after Bella's
There's
return.
a sweet scene where all three of them, Max, Bella and God, are like lying in bed together, and he just sort of
It's very
passes
sweet.
away.
We learn that Bella followed in Godwin's footsteps, became a surgeon, went to medical school. She's hanging out with Max, Toinette, and Alfie, who is on all fours, and it turns out that she did another brain transplant but replaced his brain with the brain of a goat. So he is there munching plants like Nebuchadnezzar in the Bible.
Love it.
And the end.
Oh.
Fantastic movie, I thought. Should we get into your issues with the movie?
My gripes.
Let's see what gripes we can iron out, and I can convince you that this is a fantastic movie.
Yeah, so I mean, did I think the film was very good? Yes. Did I think the acting was good? Yes. Did I think that the direction was good? Yes. Did I think that it was very well thought out? Did I think that the script was good? Yes, 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 all of the above. It just didn't work for me.
That's fair enough. May I ask if you could describe what didn't work for you?
So, I have a bit of a gripe with Goofy, and I feel like
I prefer the term whimsical.
I prefer the term goofy. And the burping, I didn't get that. Not in the slightest.
I found it funny, but I thought it was very weird for the sake of weird.
I'm guessing that's probably from the book, right?
It does seem like something that would sound good, but when you look at it, you're like, oh,
yeah.
very Looney Tunes.
And I also think that the set design is all very well done, and like the movie looks beautiful. Like, for example, the scene where they're sort of looking out from the cruise ship into the sky, or even when they're in Lisbon and they're sort of looking up at the sky and there's cable cars but the saturation is so high. And for me, it hit that bit in the back of my brain that's like, nope, don't like that.
It's interesting you bring up the saturation, as the director of photography was Robbie Ryan, who previously worked with Yorgos on The Favourite. He's worked alongside Noah Baumbach on films like Marriage Story, and he has also been the DOP on quite a few Ken Loach movies, including I, Daniel Blake, which obviously looks very different. Those movies are very grounded in reality.
It's grounded in reality.
It's really grounded in reality.
You mentioned the saturation in Lisbon. Interesting enough, this film was shot on 3 film stocks. All 35mm was obviously shot scenes in black and white, which were shot on black and white film. They weren't altered in post. They were shot on regular Kodak 35, but they also, interestingly, for the Lisbon scenes, used a film stock called Ektachrome 35mm. And this film stock was used a lot in the late 70s and early 80s. Spike Lee loved this stock. Vincent Gallo used it for Buffalo 66. Used a different process in that.
Did he use it for the Brown Bunny? When he filmed Chloe Sevigny sucking him off.
Cut.
Fuck off, Vincent Gallo, you stink.
So this stock was discontinued in 2013. It was reintroduced for motion picture format in 2021 at the request of Yorgos Lanthimos. The pre-production of this started in 2019, and Yorgos requested Kodak to make a 35mm stock of the Ektachrome, because it was on 16mm, it got reintroduced for still film stock. And this is the first motion picture it's been used in since its introduction into the market. However, it was used in season 2 of Euphoria.
Ooh.
In 2021, the first season of Euphoria was shot on digital because HBO didn't. They had faith in it, but HBO didn't want to pump so much money into it because obviously shooting on film, especially 35, is incredibly expensive. But for season 2, they had a bigger budget and shot on this Ektachrome. Visually, it is very saturated due to the fact it's what they call a reversal film stock. So the negatives are in colour. Usually negatives of a film are reversed, and then when you develop them, they become a positive picture. However, pre-development of the Ektachrome comes out as a positive image. It's not used a lot because of how saturated it is. I think it works personally for Lisbon because it's the first time that Bella has experienced a different culture, and obviously transitioning from the black and white is striking.
Yeah, and I think I completely understand the narrative purpose of these things. And it wasn't so much the saturation that I had a problem with. It's more well, you can tell me, was there CG in this movie?
So it was all shot on sound stages in Budapest.
Right.
Everything is fake. There is CG, so Shona Heath and James Price were the production designers on this. All the sets were built originally in 3D renders, and they used VR to show Yorgos what the sets would look like before they built them, because obviously it's such an expensive, and they're working with 35 million. It's not an Avengers movie budget,
No.
so they had to be smart about it. So all the sets were built digitally, and then they used those as reference points when physically building them on the sound stages. And you mentioned the sky, which is interesting now because that is CG, obviously. Because it's on a sound stage. They used it in Lisbon to extend some of the physical sets, and the sky is CG, which is interesting because that sky is obviously saturated, but digitally saturated as opposed to naturally.
And I think that's the stuff that I didn't like.
The cable cars are CG as well.
Yeah, which I think is where my criticism comes in. The practical stuff looks amazing.
Yeah.
But the rare times that they use CG, to me, it really stood out and it took me out of the movie. Because I said to you after we watched this, I very, very much enjoyed the gothic stuff. As I said, I narratively understand why it's there. Because it's Bella's life that's restricted, and then it's Bella's life that's freedom. It's bright colours. It makes sense narratively. But I think the contrast between the two, for me, was a bit much.
I get that. So I'm just going to read a quote from Robbie Ryan, the cinematographer, who said, portraying her world as bold and colourful, seeing it as if for the first time, was really the only way this story could get told. I think this approach gave us license to really open up the palette and the style of framing. So obviously in a book, you can say the reds were so red and everything was bright.
You have to show it visually because how else are you going to do it? You don't have Bella saying, oh my God, the sky is so... That's stupid. It's goofy. I completely get it. It
doesn't work for you.
No.
That's fair enough. You mentioned the Paris scenes, which were based on Degas paintings.
Ooh.
So they're very bleak. And comparing it to the black and white of the beginning, obviously, then it shoots up, and then the more life experience she gains, the colour palette sort of drains.
Because I said to you as soon as they got to... Was it as soon as they got to Lisbon? Because I was like, oh my God, wait, when did this movie become in colour?
Yeah.
We mentioned Rami Youssef. When we started the film, we knew Mark Ruffalo was going to be in the film. Or I sort of said to you, I was like, oh, that guy really looks like Mark Ruffalo.
And all the shots of Mark Ruffalo from the trailer are in colour.
Yeah, so I thought it was going to be like we're seeing Bella's life before, sort of, and then it jumps to her being not an adult, but mentally an adult. And like Max was going to be Mark Ruffalo's character. So when he came in, we were like, what?
Yeah, both of us were like, oh, they've cast this so well. He looks so much like Mark Ruffalo. Egg on our faces.
Yeah.
You mentioned to me after watching the movie, you didn't like how the cruise ship looked. That was a practical set that they built. Obviously, the exterior of the boat is miniature.
Right.
Because it reminded me visually of Jabba's sail barge from Return of the Jedi. The sea is obviously CG, and the horizon is an LED display. Sort of, if you've watched behind the scenes of, not to bring up Star Wars again, but The Mandalorian, it's sort of a new era of rear screen projection, because I think people realise green screens look pretty naff. Even in modern day, you can tell. You're
100%.
So what you do is you build a set with LED screens and project onto those LED screens, or display onto those LED screens, the background, so you are physically there. I think they probably alter it in post a bit, but they didn't want a green screen for the boat because it had so much reflective material on the exterior that it'd be hard to key in the green screen.
And again, I think my criticism with those things is I'm not against CG. I just think that it just hit that little part of my brain where I was like, this looks like that fucking Charlie and the Chocolate Factory remake, where it's like, oh, this looks rough. The colours, and I think on the film stock it worked, but as soon as you start adding in the other elements, and I totally get you can't do everything practically. I would rather complain about a movie like this because I know that the filmmaker cares about their craft.
You're not into visual whimsicality, I guess.
No.
Because all your favourite movies are very grounded in reality. You like sort of anarchic filmmaking.
Yeah, I like gritty stuff.
Interestingly, this film did have a bit of an anarchic spirit about it, as Yorgos is an auteur, but not in the way we understand it. He's very collaborative. He hires people he knows share his vision, and he very much directs on the fly. Like, there's a lot of accidental moments in this in terms of shooting. I'll give you a couple of examples. There's a couple shots of what looks like fisheye, where there's a massive vignette around the edge, and you said it was making you dizzy.
Yeah, it gave me fucking motion sickness.
That was an accident, how it came out. It wasn't supposed to look like that initially. He didn't plan for that. However, they tested over 50 lenses for this movie. They settled on about 3 or 4. That lens specifically is a 4mm lens, which is designed for 16mm film. And when they inserted the 35mm, the picture came out like that, where they had that extreme vignette, blurred edges, and the focus of the frame feels so far away visually. And he saw it and was like, yeah, sure, let's keep it in.
That is mental. I just assumed that he was just doing different...
I mean, I think Robbie Ryan is a lot of the reason this movie looks how it does, in collaboration with Yorgos, but he said Yorgos was very open to anything that he could come up with, which I guess is like a director of photography's dream.
Yeah, and I also think that you've said he's sort of an auteur, but not in the way of we think of auteurs. I love that. I think that's so refreshing.
It is.
Because a lot of these auteurs are, it's my way or the highway. And like, even the fact that Emma Stone was a producer on this movie, you can tell.
Everyone behind the scenes, we'll go into costumes in a bit, but especially the costume designer said she was an absolute delight to work with.
Oh, well, that's nice.
Again, the same as Yorgos, they trust experts. And as someone who worked on, Emma Stone started off as comedy actress in, Superbad and Easy A and things like that, and is now Oscar winning and working on huge projects. And she's very humble, apparently.
I love her.
She raised ideas for costumes, but all she wanted to do was learn about the reasoning behind everything and talk to the experts who were making the film, so her performance would come across as everyone intended, not just Yorgos, but she'd ask, why am I wearing this?
It's method acting in a way that's not... It's not even method acting.
I think it's just good acting.
But you know how people talk about, like, we're sort of over method acting a bit, in the sense of, like, most of the time it's just an excuse for men to be dicks.
Yeah, and I think with an actor like Dafoe as well, who plays God, apparently he wasn't in character all the time, but he loved the universe so much. Apparently he slept overnight on sets most nights, didn't go back to his hotel, and loved the house so much. I saw a behind-the-scenes video of him walking through the house, because obviously it's all practical.
Yeah.
And there's like secret passages and doors he was showing whoever was recording the behind the scene.
Yeah.
And he just loved existing on the set, and he loved the movie and loved the character.
I feel like it really reminded me of his character in Spider-Man, like,
yeah,
as the Green Goblin.
And sorry to interrupt, there's a direct reference to a Gobbo line in this.
Really?
Yes, where in Spider-Man he goes,
Harry tells me you're quite the science whiz. I'm something of a scientist myself.
and in this, in his Scottish accent, I'm not going to try and do, says he's somewhat of a romantic himself, which could be a coincidence. But
Nah,
I
definitely
think it's an
not.
intentional
That's
reference
so
to
good.
the Goblin.
You know how we said last week that Anthony Hopkins he's a class actor. He is a generation. That's how I feel about Willem Dafoe.
And again, it would be so easy for him to be a dick, because he takes these roles where
Very seriously as well. He's always playing freaks.
could be easy to slip into method.
Oh, 100%.
But he doesn't, and he seems just like a nice guy who loves his craft.
Because even people like Christian Bale, he's a bit borderline for me. The worst example of it for me is like Jared Leto, where I'm like, you're not even that talented. Whereas like Christian Bale, I'm like, you know what? He's a dick, but I sort of get it.
Well, it's the same with Daniel Day-Lewis, where you can argue that the ends justify the means, whereas no Jared Leto performance, the ends have never justified the means.
It was awfully mean.
But sometimes the ends justify the mean.
Another accidental thing that was done on the fly was they really wanted to use a camera called the widescreen VistaVision, which is a 1950s camera. I think they wanted to use it as an ode to the old Frankenstein movies and those gothic Universal pictures. However, the camera was far too loud to be used in dialogue scenes. So they used it in one scene, which is Bella's reanimation. And I think it's fantastic and it looks amazing. It's so gorgeous. However, accidentally, they didn't realise the battery on the camera was low and it was dropping frames while filming. So it wasn't being shot at 24 frames per second. I think it was dropping every other frame.
That's crazy.
Which is why Bella's reanimation, her eyes burst open. And that was a complete accident. It's just the camera happened to drop frames. But they used it because they thought thematically it worked and visually it worked. Interestingly, he had no storyboards for this, no shot list. So they went into each day basically being like, right, what are we doing today? Because there was no shot list. Whereas obviously every film, I guess it's easier because it's shot on sound stages. So you don't have to plan as extensively. But the fact that there was no storyboards is crazy.
Part of the reason why this movie didn't quite work for me is because the black and white gothic stuff was by far my favourite stuff in the movie. And I sort of wish that that was the main focus because I loved it. Like the creepy reanimator, like Frankenstein stuff. That's my favourite. I love it.
I totally get that. It's so good that it almost is disappointing to leave that.
Yeah, definitely.
However, obviously, narratively, you have to.
Well, yeah, of course.
But I do get what you mean. It's the opening of the movie is so fantastic as well.
And I very much like the end where she's cognizant but sort of goes back to that like slightly gothic but more colourful version of that universe. It's quite cool.
I guess that segues nicely into the costumes. Holly Waddington was the costume designer of this. And
She ate.
She did eat. She won, obviously, the Oscar for it.
Yeah, she really smashed out of the park with this.
She is a historical costumer. So
awesome.
She's worked on Macbeth. And she is very into fashion history. I've watched a few interviews with her. She knows her shit.
That's my dream job.
She used the technique of what they call costume plot. So the costumes themselves tell a story that goes alongside the main narrative arc of the character.
I don't think you even have to be into film necessarily to pick up on that. When we talk about the themes of this movie and how they're not very subtle, that's not a slight because I don't think they're ever intended to be subtle. But I do think that the costume element of it is probably one of the more understated parts of showing her personal growth in different ways.
Sure, that is completely correct. The opening scenes of Bella, particularly like where she's very infantile, her costumes were based on Victorian dolls, as well as human anatomy and the human body.
Because she's wearing like bloomers, right? Like Victorian.
Yorgos was obsessed with puffy sleeves. Apparently, when she came to Yorgos, she had a massive book of basically Bella's character progression through outfits. And again, apparently he saw one costume that was like, had puffy sleeves, and he was like, yeah, I like that. And he was like, more sleeves, which reminded me of Napoleon Dynamite, where he tells his date, I like your sleeves.
I like your sleeves. They're real big.
Thank you.
We mentioned the bloomers. She initially is wearing those and they're very sort of infantile, but then I just remember one point in the movie, I can't remember when it was, she's wearing this beautiful like short set. Because she's always wearing clothes that are a bit odd. Like, I don't really think you'd see women just wandering around in, like, shorts.
No, so Holly Waddington describes it as a 5-year-old dressing in her mother's wardrobe.
Yeah, that tracks.
When she leaves Godwin's house, obviously Godwin has her dressed as a child, as she is one, for all intents and purposes. And then when she leaves, she is wearing inappropriate clothes for the time period. I think, by the sounds of it, as I mentioned before, she was a historical costumer, found it quite difficult as Yorgos was not at all wanting it to be period correct. He wanted it to be sort of have a modern flair to it.
Yeah.
So she's never wearing a corset at any point, even when she's in her ball gown.
Yeah.
Which was unheard of, basically. You wouldn't do that.
Mm.
And obviously, yeah, she's wearing basically modern equivalent of knickers and a jacket out in one day. And none of the characters in the universe, it's not a point made about it.
No one acknowledges it.
Yeah, it's for the narrative arc exclusively.
Yeah, and I love this. When she's in the brothel, she wears a lot of sort of like transparent and very like highly sexualized but highly infantilized clothing as well.
Yeah, when she gets to Paris, she's wearing what the cast and crew called the condom jacket.
Yeah.
Which was sort of a yellowish, see-through.
It's so gross. It looks slimy.
It looks slimy, yeah. You mentioned the brothel scenes. I've got a quote from the costume designer here about those scenes where she said, "I wanted to work against the traditional Victorian brothel palette. The women are all wearing skin-coloured latex stockings and perspex. Their breasts are revealed, and it's a real celebration of the body. I also made knickers for them so you could see their pubic hair. These are things we don't tend to celebrate in modern sexual culture."
Yeah, awesome.
So, yeah, even taking into account the history of sex in this movie, even in the costumes, I think is such a fabulous thing to do.
Yeah, and there's so much nudity in the movie, but it's sort of done in a way that it's sexual, obviously, but like she's naked underneath, but she's got this like very sheer sort of thing, and you can like see her nipples and her like, pubic hair, and it looks so good. Everything is so cool, and she's wearing that ridiculous makeup, painted whore makeup.
Oh, you had it set to whore.
Homer, you've got it set on whore.
If the only time Emma Stone ever wears makeup in the movie is in the brothel scenes.
Amazing. And her hair, I said to you so many times during, when we were watching it, that her hair is amazing. You don't see people with hair that long because it's so impractical.
Yeah, so again, another filmmaking accident, as Emma Stone accidentally dyed her hair that dark.
I did see that, yeah.
However, Yorgos liked it when he saw it, so kept it in.
Awesome.
Because her hair, I think, is 42 inches by the end of it, I saw.
Really?
So very long.
Because what do they say? Does he say it grows 1.5 inches a day or something?
Something like that, Max says that.
But again, why?
I think it's accelerated growth.
But it's just like,
oh yeah,
it's one of those things that's never addressed. And it doesn't need to be addressed, but it's just like, yeah, her hair just grows. It's like, okay.
Lastly, on the costumes, I think Bella is she has an arc in her costumes where the other characters don't really.
Yeah.
Lastly, on Bella, just a couple of points. On the boat, it's during the day and she's wearing a ball gown, which apparently was a social faux pas. You shouldn't wear a ball gown, an evening dress in the day. But obviously she is, at that point, the equivalent of like a toddler. It's almost like a kid on non-school uniform day wearing a princess outfit to school.
That's crazy.
Where it's like, yeah, no, it looks nice. Why wouldn't I wear it?
Your behaviour is unconscionable. We behave.
In the dance scene, Emma Stone, I'd just like to again reinforce
her
how...
physicality in this movie is so good.
Exactly. It's that. It's the physicality of it, her comedic timing. Because if you actually break down her performance, she has to act a child. She has to have comedic timing as well as the physicality in her performance because she's not walking normally. She's walking like a toddler. And just that alone and nailing the timing of everything. She's so funny in this movie. And lastly, yeah, during that dance scene that I mentioned, her blouse is the wrong way around, which again is just very subtle because they don't mention it. At no point do they mention it. It's just a little nod for, I guess, people watching this movie who know about Victorian attire.
Which is 3 people.
Yeah,
and it's even you telling me about it, I'm like, that's so interesting. I never would have noticed that, and I didn't know where it. You just think Victorian, they just wore corsets and ball gowns, but there's so many layers to and I think that's what really.
Again, sort of like Bram Stoker's Dracula, made by nerds for nerds.
Yeah.
It doesn't hit you over the head with, at no point does Mark Ruffalo go, "Oh, your blouse is the wrong way around," or "Oh, you're wearing a ball gown in the day." They don't do that. You see it, you're not told it.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of that in the movie where it wears its references on its sleeve, and it's done so well that that's not your focus. You know what I mean? Where it's like, these are cool things. If you wish to dive into them, you'll get a lot out of it. They're not over-explained, and they're not like, hey, do you remember this?
Yeah, and I know the themes are very obvious, but at no point do the characters tell you.
Yeah, exactly. Him being called God,
that's
yes. Funny.
It's funny.
It's funny. When she's like, God wouldn't like this, and I'm like, yeah, it made me laugh. It got a chuckle out of me.
And he is playing God.
I can't let you go.
If you do not, Bella shall turn rotten with hate.
Speaking of Godwin Baxter, I'd just like to spend maybe a couple minutes talking about his character.
Amazing.
So, behind the scenes, Willem Dafoe was in makeup for 3 hours at a time, putting on the prosthetics. The prosthetics designer, Mark Coulier, worked on some Hellraiser sequels.
Really?
Worked on Elvis, yeah.
Elvis and the Hellraiser sequels. That is quite an expansive...
Very odd. Hellraiser was very early in his career, and he seems to be doing a lot more mainstream work now. He worked on, however, the Kenneth Branagh directed and starring Frankenstein movie,
Right.
which was produced by Francis Ford Coppola. I think there was a mini glut of Universal horror monster revamps post Bram Stoker's
Do
Dracula.
you mean in 2018 or whenever Universal tried to do their
Dark Universe?
Dark Universe. Haha.
You failed.
My name is Jekyll. Dr. Henry Jekyll.
Willem Dafoe's character is so interesting in this, as he's the son of a surgeon. And he seems to respect his father, but he mentions at one point he's a eunuch because his father did experiments on him. His face is carved up. They got that effect, apparently. Mark Coulier took pictures of Willem Dafoe and cut them with scissors and tried to reassemble them.
Crazy.
And that's how we got that sort of lines on his face.
That is so cool. I also think Willem Dafoe, he will go to bat for art.
Oh, he is an artist.
Genuinely couldn't think of anyone better to play that character.
One of the gripes I have with this movie is there is not enough Willem Dafoe.
No, he should be in every scene.
Every scene that Willem Dafoe is not on screen, people should be asking, where's Willem Dafoe?
Exactly.
So yeah, like I mentioned with his father, at the start I thought, obviously we have that perception of Frankenstein and reanimating and playing God, that these people are bad characters, and I don't think he is. It's a difficult moral conundrum with his character, because obviously he rescues Victoria, who he calls Bella. She would have been dead, the baby would have died. However, he rescues her and performs experiments, which I guess is just not his place to do. And it is the big, I guess, the Jurassic Park conundrum. Just because you can do it, should you?
I don't think you ever feel like his intentions. He's a scientist.
He's a scientist and a father figure to Bella. Well, Max does question it as you would, but he's not defensive about it.
No, he says something to the effect of, yeah, of course I've had sexual thoughts, but there's no sexual element to our relationship in the slightest. And I think that immediately does everything that you need it to do. It puts that thought to rest. And I think that is done very well. You touched on it earlier, but the FGM stuff for me doesn't work. I don't like that.
I think it's too much of a threat for a film.
I agree.
This whimsical.
And I get why it was there, and it makes sense. And I think it's a tribute to what women at that time went through in the name of science.
Yeah, I just wish it was something like a lobotomy instead.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's too visceral.
Mm-hmm. I get there's themes of sex in it, and stripping her of sexual desire is obviously, I don't know, it's a nasty subject matter.
Yeah, it works, but I sort of think that you don't need that to prove how evil this character is. I think you get it. And I think him wanting to have her as a little house pet is enough. It's too gnarly, I think. Talking of sort of sex and things like that, I think it's really interesting to show her sort of evolution in her attitude towards sex, because when she first discovers masturbation, like we said, she doesn't get why everyone's not doing it at all times, right? Because if something feels that good...
It's like that quote in Peep Show.
I mean, if people only did everything they wanted, everyone would just spend all day sitting on the carpet watching the poker channel, wanking and eating those expensive German biscuits. Probably.
But it's so funny, and when she starts like shoving shit up her pussy, like through at the dinner table, the sex comedy stuff in this, I loved it. It's so funny, and it's kind of sexy, but there's an innocence to it, which I like.
It's such a throwback style of comedy as well, sex comedy. You don't get them made a lot today. They're very, but I like some of the Woody Allen sex comedies from the 70s and 80s, like A Midsummer Night's Sex Comedy, and and a lot of those Burnell movies from the 70s as well.
But I think what really makes this work so much is that there is not one moment in the film where you feel like Emma Stone is being exploited or that she is not in control of this narrative.
Oh, 100%.
And I think that's so refreshing.
It is. It just views sex in such a realistic and down-to-earth way, where a lot of sex in movies is obviously not portrayed in the most matter-of-fact way that it is in this. Because obviously it's coming from an innocence where, it feels good, why shouldn't I do it?
Yeah, and I think the fact that she latches onto sex with Mark Ruffalo's character so quickly because she's just discovered that that's a way that she can, for want of a better word, stimulate her brain. And then she meets a lot of other people who teach her about literature, and they teach her about society, and they teach her about philosophy, and then she starts being less interested in sex because she's found other ways to sort of occupy her brain.
So at one point, all she wants to do is just read.
Yeah, but like she's still sexual. Like when she's in the brothel, her friend teaches her about philosophy and communism, but she's also teaching her about what it is to get pleasure from a woman and not a man. And there's so many elements of her character development that come through, and it's done in a way that doesn't feel judgmental towards people who like sex. It doesn't feel judgmental towards people who like literature and reading and philosophy. She is all of those things at once. It's cool.
It is cool.
It is your body, Bella Baxter. Yours to give freely.
I generally charge 30 francs.
Well, that seems low.
So to round off our discussion about Poor Things, has this conversation made you warm up to it slightly?
No.
So would you say you dislike this movie?
No.
Oh, okay. It's just the parts you don't like, you can't get over.
The parts I don't like, I really don't like. And that's very minor. I don't want to change the movie because I think for people that it works for, and it clearly works for 90% of the people who are watching this, it's just not for me.
That is fair enough, and I don't blame you for that.
You know
if
me.
It doesn't work, I know you, and I know I can't put it into words why you don't like this movie. It's just the vibe.
Yeah, it just doesn't fit my vibe.
It cringes you out a bit.
It does. But I mean, I liked the movie. Did I enjoy watching it? Not really.
Fair enough. Well, maybe Yorgos's film coming out this year will...
Maybe if I try another one.
He's got a new movie coming out this year with Emma Stone as well.
Yeah, I think
And it's got Hunter Schafer in it.
I think I'd just take the L on Yorgos, I'm afraid. It's not for me.
Speaking of taking the L, do you want to play a little bit of Is Georgia That Smart Really?
Right, I did okay last week.
I think this week you're going to smash it.
Do you think? I hope.
Obviously, Poor Things is shot a lot in black and white, and I have a quiz about movies post-1990 shot in black and white. I'm going to give you their IMDb plot summary. I've removed some names and specific details from them. We have 10 of them, all released post-1990, and I want to see how many you can get just from the IMDb plot alone.
Let's go.
Play?
I do.
You ready?
Yeah.
I'm going to start you off easy, get you a bit of momentum.
Okay.
24 hours in the lives of 3 young men in the French suburbs the day after a violent riot.
Latin.
Correct.
Yes.
Fantastic movie. We both love.
Awesome. Check it out if you haven't seen it.
Question 2. In German-occupied Poland during World War II, an industrialist gradually becomes concerned for his Jewish workforce after witnessing their persecution by the Nazis.
What is the time period? 1990.
Yeah, they're all post-1990, but up until
Schindler's
this year.
List?
Correct. Schindler's List. Have you seen it?
No.
Very sad.
Not a bit of me again.
No, you don't like war movies.
I don't like war movies. I don't like sad movies, really. I prefer anguish and torment.
Question 3. An ambitious but troubled movie director tries his best to fulfill his dreams despite his lack of talent.
Ed Wood.
Yes.
Yes!
3 for 3.
Smashing this week.
You are smashing
And by the
this
way,
week.
I have not edited out any pausing in this so far, so...
You're just getting them right off the bat. Question 4. A New York woman apprentices for a dance company and throws herself headlong into her dreams, even as the possibility of realising them dwindles.
The Piano Teacher.
No.
Ugh.
I'm going to give you a hint. This is another movie you would fucking hate and I really like. Oh, we mentioned it before on this podcast. I can't remember. It's not this episode, but a couple of episodes ago.
Frances Ha.
Correct.
I hadn't even heard of that movie until you mentioned it on the pod.
It's a Noah Baumbach and Greta Gerwig movie. It's
Ugh.
fantastic. Question 5. An exploration of the dark and miserable city and 3 of its residents, all of whom are caught up in violent corruption.
Watchmen?
No.
Sin City.
Yeah,
Oh,
well done.
I couldn't remember which one it was.
You're
Is
5 for
Watchmen in
5.
black and white?
No.
Sin City, yeah. I have seen that. I've seen Sin City 2. Sin City 2's got Lady Gaga in it, hasn't it?
God, I don't know. I haven't watched those movies.
Yeah, they're not very good. I didn't really like them. Maybe I like them more.
6. A film crew follows a ruthless thief and heartless killer as he goes about his daily routine. but complications set in when the film crew lose their objectivity and begin lending a hand.
Man Bites Dog.
Yes, I knew you'd get that one. That's a great movie as well.
We didn't finish it. Don't lie to the audience.
Did we not finish
We
that
both
movie?
fell asleep and just have never rewatched it because it's miserable.
7. A year in the life of a middle-class family's maid in Mexico City in the early 1970s. If you need a hint with this one, and one,
Yeah, you're gonna have to give me a hint.
it was a critical darling. I think it won Best Picture.
What year did it come out?
2018. It was a Netflix release. It's pretty forgotten about already, sadly, because it is good. You didn't watch it, but I watched it and it's great.
It rings a bell, but I don't know.
You pass?
I think I'm gonna have to pass.
Roma.
Oh no, I would never have got that.
Really? Do you not
No.
remember Roma? It was
I
massive when
remember
came
it,
out.
but I didn't know anything about it.
Okay. Question 8.
Is this the last one?
No, there's 10.
10.
A day in the life of two convenience store employees as they annoy customers, discuss movies, and play hockey on the store roof. I love this movie. You haven't seen it.
Canadian?
No. It is from a filmmaker who was good and now fucking sucks.
Kevin Smith.
It is a Kevin Smith film.
Clerks.
It is Clerks. Well
Yeah.
done. I love Clerks. I haven't seen the sequels. I've seen a few Kevin Smith films.
Who's in it?
It's got Jay and Silent Bob in it. Oh, it's got
Yeah,
Rosario
that's-
Dawson in it.
That's what I was thinking.
Oh, was she just in the sequel? I can't remember.
Is Kevin Smith not Canadian?
No, I thought he was American.
Hmm.
He might be Canadian, though. I might be completely wrong. 9. When George, the silent movie superstar, meets Peppy Miller, a dancer, sparks fly between the two. However, after the introduction of talking pictures, their fortunes change, affecting their dynamic.
Have I seen this movie?
No,
Have you seen this movie?
when it came out in 2011.
Can I have a clue?
Again, it won Best Picture. I think it's regarded as one of the worst Best Picture winners.
Really?
Yeah. It was a critical darling for about a month, and then everyone forgot it existed.
And then people decided that it was rubbish. Yeah, no, I don't know.
That was The Artist.
Oh.
Do you remember that? It was like a silent movie that came out in 2011.
Yeah, it rings a bell. Again, not something that I would ever seek out.
Last question. You are 7 for 9. Well
Wow.
done. You've done really well here.
I'm glad.
Question 10, our final question. Living a life marked by violence, a neo-Nazi finally goes to prison after killing 2 black youths. Upon his release, he vows to change. He hopes to prevent his brother, who idolizes him, from following in his footsteps.
American History X.
Correct. 8 out of 10.
Oh yeah.
Well done.
That wasn't me being indignant and annoying. That was me actually knowing the answers to the questions, which isn't
was.
quite as fun to laugh at.
Well, let me know how many you got if you're playing along at home.
That is sort of a little bit tailored. No, it's not tailored to me.
No, because, I mean, 1, 2, 3...
There also aren't that many black and white
4,
movies.
5 of these movies you haven't even seen.
Well, that's
so-
true. That is true.
And I knew you didn't. I mean, yeah, I'm impressed you got Francis Ha,
Thank
because I know
you.
you dislike that movie.
I've never even heard of it.
If you don't like whimsy, that is not the movie for you. This is very whimsical.
I'm saying I don't like this movie. I'm like, yeah, I
Well,
don't like it.
I
but...
watched it and I liked it, and the entire time I watched it, I was like, George, I fucking hate this. So yeah, that wraps up this week's Idle Film Club, I think.
We have an exciting episode coming out next week, which is exciting for no one.
Well, we're talking about 2 movies that when they came out, no one gave a fuck about, and now, in retrospect, still no one gives a fuck about.
I think people give even less of a fuck.
Yes, so we're talking about 2 Nicholas Winding Refn movies. His 2 post-Drive movies that came out to 0 acclaim. Only God Forgives, which is one of my favourites of all time. I love it. And Neon Demon, which is good.
I think this is the start of a new segment for us, which is going to be, does Georgia still hate this movie? I have seen Only God Forgives, and I fucking hated it. Absolutely hated it.
We'll be watching it in the week. I think this will be my 5th time watching it. It's one of those movies I revisit quite a bit.
Yeah.
Because I love it to fucking pieces. Yeah. So I'm very excited to give it a rewatch.
Yeah, Neon Demon, in 2016, I took my friends to the cinema upon my request to go and see this movie because I was so excited about it, and they fucking hated it. And I liked it slightly more, and I don't even think I really liked it. They were so mad at me.
You showed it to me when we first got together, I think.
Yeah.
And I liked it a lot, but I've only seen it once.
Had you watched Refn at that point?
I don't think so. Georgia expanded my mind when it came to movies.
Yeah, so this is going to be a new. Maybe we'll do it once a season where we sort of revisit some stuff. I've changed. I've grown. You've made me into more of a wanker.
Yep.
So I've expanded your mind.
And then I threw it right back at you.
Yeah, exactly. So
if you want to check out those two movies, Only God Forgives and The Neon Demon,
I'm not recommending them to anyone, so don't blame me if you watch them.
I'm recommending it. If you like Drive, then
don't watch them.
They're great. Check them out and join us next week on Idle Film Club where we'll be discussing them.
Well, thank you so much for listening, as always. Check out our socials. I've been posting a lot on TikTok.
George is managing the TikTok and she does a fantastic edit, so go check them out. They're great.
I've been having a lot of fun with that. Obviously, we're on the usual socials and we're trying to get our backdated catalogue onto YouTube as we speak.
There is big things coming up on YouTube. I haven't decided what they are yet, but we will be doing something good to get people over there.
We'll figure it out. Thanks for listening, as always.
Thank you so much for listening, everyone, and have a fabulous week.
Speak to you soon.
Goodbye.
I don't like these movies.
Get real.
Dude, I saw that movie 20 goddamn times!
Just consume violence. I watch violent movies. Yeah, violent movies are the best movies.
And it's so much fun and getting.
So once again, no smoking in this theater.